Hey, I'm Josh from Bernal Cutlery, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about gyutos. This is Masanosuke gyuto that's on the cover of our book Sharp, and it's a real oddball. And I found a little group of these new old stock, and I hadn't seen anything like it before. And I sent some photos to Ashi-san at Ashi Cutlery in Osaka. He's been making Western style knives for a long time, and wanted to see if he knew anything about this maker, if he recognized any of the materials or styles. And he didn't really, but he knew of the company, and he knew the old president of this company who had began in the early 70s. And he said that this knife had a stamp from before his time there. So 60s, not a bad bet. And what's real unusual about that is that at the time, there weren't really many forged laminated gyutos. So the gyutos that were around were forged, but were made of Amano steel. So this one is a laminated steel and iron and something like white steel in the core. It doesn't say, and from using it, I can't really tell. But it seems kind of like that. But it's a real unusual knife. I thought it was beautiful, but it's a kind of interesting look into the boundary of tradition and craft and innovation, and it kind of points a lot more towards the innovative side rather than a strictly repetitive style of tradition. I think a lot of people have in their mind of what traditional workmanship, traditional techniques, traditional knife making are about. There's some styles that haven't changed very much, and then there's a lot of styles that have changed super rapidly, and the gyuto is one that has changed very rapidly, more rapidly than I knew. When I got started writing the book, it was really interesting to me to learn that Western style gyutos were really the norm up until fairly recently, and in Japan, they really still are the norm. If you go peek into the back of a kitchen, any number of different kinds of kitchens, professional kitchens in Japan, you'll see, typically a Western style gyuto in there. The wa gyuto that we've become a lot more familiar with is somewhat of a more recent innovation. And yes, it's utilizing a lot of traditional blacksmithing techniques, but the design is something that's really on the move. It's not a static, homogeneous style of knife that's been made, for hundreds of years, which can be either, implied directly or indirectly by, talk of tradition. So I thought that it was really interesting to speak with a lot of traditional craftsmen and get their take on their craft, and to see that they were actually not just sitting in one spot repeating the same thing over and over, that they were moving things forward, and they were thinking and asking questions, and they were getting feedback from cooks, and they were doing all sorts of things to experiment. And the wa gyuto that we've come to love, especially here in the West, is a much more recent innovation, and one that really hasn't taken root for the last 20 years. It's really when it's hit its stride. So to see an early iteration of this in this Masanosuke was really interesting to me, and interesting to use it. The blade definitely has a different kind of geometry than what we've kind of come to appreciate in gyutos, and it's a bit thicker. It's not quite a yodeba, and it's definitely tempered hard, so you would want to hit bones with this or break fish with it per se, but it has a lot more heft. And also just the curve of the blade is not necessarily lending towards that forward rocking push cut. So interesting to use this and to kind of get a guess at what the intentions of the makers were. It's opaque to me, but I thought it was fascinating, and that kind of general theme of that line of inquiry was really kind of behind a lot of what really started to propel me through writing that book. And halfway through researching it, my whole focus on what what I wanted to accomplish with the book kind of changed. I wanted to try and find the origins of the chef's knife. That was my big project to start the book with, and it was really difficult to get much past the early 19th century. That was really difficult in Europe, or what these didn't show chef's knives like these didn't show up in Japan until late 1860s, but 1870s Meiji Restoration and all that. But touch on a little bit of that and a bunch of other topics in the book. So if this seems interesting, if you made it this far in the video, maybe check it out. All right, thanks for listening.